Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in Andy Swan. He's the co-founder at Likefolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, so we're talking Ulta Beauty. Another one. Yesterday we talked about Dick's Sporting Goods. You guys had positive sentiment data on that one. That stock's exploding again. Ulta's in the same boat where it's at all-time highs going into earnings. It's like the move's already been made, but some of these stocks just continue to move higher. What kind of data do you guys have here in Ulta going into earnings?
Yeah, actually a very similar story to Dick's yesterday. I think momentum is becoming a big factor in this market. So we're less scared of all-time highs than probably we have ever been going into earnings, and I think Ulta's a pretty good example of that. Last quarter we nailed this one with a big upside surprise. The stock has been on a tear since. I think that what's going on at Ulta is it's winning. If we look at mentions of Ulta Beauty products, they're up 19% year over year off of a very, very solid base last year. It was already growing pretty rapidly, but even more impressive for us is that consumer happiness levels are up 10% year over year in the same time frame that we've seen that really strong move in consumer demand. And so when you get those two factors moving simultaneously, it tells you that the company is executing at a really high level. They're bringing in new customers at a faster and faster pace, and they're making those customers very loyal and very happy with the products that they buy. And so overall going into this, the stock is up considerably. It's very high. Everybody likes to think that a pullback is likely, and that may be true, but our data is saying the stock is here for a good reason, and that is that the company is doing extremely well. We expect them to post very good numbers. We expect them to have a positive 2024 outlook because they're in an industry with a tailwind, cosmetics, and they're out executing everybody else in the space.
And I know that one of the companies you oftentimes will likely look at, I'm sure, is Sephora versus Ulta. Yep. Although there are distinctions, of course, Ulta is, for lack of a better word, let's say inclusive. It has sort of the drugstore brands, the traditional pharmacy brands, but also has some of the higher end, where Sephora is a little bit more of a higher end only kind of beauty store. Yep. But how are they comparing versus one another? I'd imagine they're correlated, but you mentioned you feel like Ulta's winning this space right now. I would guess that they're outperforming that against Sephora.
Yeah, if you look at Ulta versus Sephora in terms of web visits, web traffic, we think that's been a really good indicator for which of these two companies is getting the most consumer demand and consumer buzz. And you can really see Ulta taking off here very recently. They've had a really great event that they put out. I think it was, extremely successful with consumers. And it tells us that Ulta going into this call has every reason to be optimistic about the future because the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks, which won't be reflected in the numbers they report, but will be reflected in their outlook and the executive enthusiasm, have been very good. And so we think executives have every reason to be optimistic, especially when they're compared to the competitor Sephora. It looks like they're leaving them behind, at least as of now.
Andy, when you guys talk about web visits, you saw that big jump there in Ulta according to your data. Now, I talked about this yesterday with Dick's Sporting Goods. It's like, yeah, the e-commerce side is improving at this point, but we've seen traffic trends from a lot of other retailers really start to pick up here. Is this going to be the added bonus now with Ulta, lodged into Target stores?
Yeah, I think so. When we look at the reports that Target put out, that Dick's put out, I think that a lot of these companies, they have good e-commerce plays, but they still need people to walk into the store, and I think that's true of both Dick's and Target especially. So that those very strong reports give us confidence that Ulta is also benefiting from the foot traffic trend being up, and so does Likefolio overall mentions. People talking about the product is up 19% year over year. That's not a small number when you're talking about cosmetics. That's kind of a 2 standard deviation type of number. And so I think Ulta's doing very well with the consumer.
Andy, we just had a disappointing retail sales number. It's been kind of a trend over the last few months. So if there is some sort of economic slowdown, I'd also imagine that this is a space that has like a first layer of resilience. It's somewhat of a staple for those who shop at these stores. And then that added bonus that Ulta would sell the trade down product as well has to help it.
Yeah, I love their portfolio. I think they're really well positioned kind of for both. An economy that's on the upswing, they've got the luxury brands and they can move their clients up shelf to the upper shelf. But on the other hand, if things slow down, they've got products for them as well. And as we've seen in the past, economic slowdowns really have been a little bit of a boom for the cosmetics industry. I think it's called the lipstick effect. And that is, one of the things that people are not going to stop spending money on is looking good. They might not be able to make the trip. They might not be able to buy the new car, but they can certainly, put their best face on and go out into the world. And I think Ulta's really helping them do that.
Yeah, they say it's almost recession-proof, sectors or industries like this. Andy, real quick here, do you have an earnings score with it at all-time highs?
Yeah, earnings score is just, plus 18, which is slightly bullish. It would be much more bullish if the stock hadn't rallied so much into this. So we look at this as we think the company's going to print really good numbers. It's up to you how to play it. But if we get a dip on just any sort of pullback, market pullback, momentum stops working, this is a company that I would have on my radar for a long-term position for sure.
All right, great stuff, great data. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that's Andy Swan. He's a co-founder at Likefolio, breaking down Ulta's data.